Gdańsk is located in northern Poland near the Baltic Sea. This is the region where, on September 1st, 1939, Hitler's army invaded Poland, thus initiating the start of World War II. This is the Museum of the Second World War in Gdańsk. In my opinion, Poland has some of the most informative World War II museums and largest collections of World War II artifacts that I've ever seen. On this slide, we see a Nazi uniform, a Hitler Youth uniform, and even Nazi Christmas ornaments displaying the swastika. To the left is a large Nazi flag, and to the right, a German DKW motorcycle from 1939 used by the German military. To the right is an SS armband from Plaszow concentration camp. Plaszow is near Oskar Schindler's factory and was one of the camps featured in the movie Schindler's List. To the left is a whip used by guards to torture inmates at the Gross-Rosen concentration camp. To the left are remnants of shoes discovered at Chełmno, an extermination camp in Poland where people were murdered in gas vans. If you'd like to learn more about Chełmno, please see my YouTube channel where I have a video dedicated to it. Although it's pronounced Chełmno, the spelling is Chelmno. To the right is a display in the museum with portraits of some of the victims of the Holocaust. Up near the Baltic Sea is an outdoor exhibition by the Museum of the Second World War. The Battle of Westerplatte was the site of the first battle of World War II, where Germany invaded Poland. This is a monument to fallen victims of Westerplatte. In the area are also several ruins of former barracks and guardhouses. This is the Westerplatte Monument, which is also known as the Monument to the Defenders of the Coast. It was unveiled in 1966. Also in Gdańsk, near the shipyard, is the European Solidarity Center, which houses the history of the Solidarity movement. The center was opened in 2014. Now we'll travel to the Wolf's Lair. It's the name of Hitler's general headquarters compound, located in a remote region of northeast Poland. Construction began in 1940. The Nazis abandoned the site at the end of 1944, and they blew up the site in January 1945. The bunker remains were open to the public in 1959 after the surrounding area was cleared of over 54,000 mines that the Nazis had placed as an added layer of security. This is a billboard at the entrance of the Wolf's Lair that maps out the compound. Bunker 13 was Hitler's bunker and is located here. The conference barracks building is here, and this is where an assassination attempt was made on Hitler. The 2008 movie Valkyrie with Tom Cruise told the story of the assassination attempt. Tom Cruise played Klaus von Stauffenberg, who, on July 22, 1944, placed a briefcase with a bomb under a conference table that Hitler was speaking at. This slide shows some of the remains of that barrack location. This is from a billboard at the site. Klaus von Stauffenberg, seen here, was a colonel in the German army. The map over here kind of describes what happened. Hitler was standing where the green ring is, and von Stauffenberg where the blue ring was, and he placed the briefcase with the bomb under this conference table. Von Stauffenberg then left the building after he set the briefcase down, and another person ended up moving the briefcase to a different location under the table because it was in his way. When the bomb went off, 11 people were injured and 4 were killed. The 4 that were killed are marked by their red rings. Hitler only sustained very minor injuries. The failed assassination attempt was likely due to several factors. The briefcase being moved to a different location. The conference table was made out of heavy oak, which absorbed some of the blast. And the barracks had windows over here, which allowed some of the effects of the blast to exit the room. The middle picture shows some of the aftermath in that room. It was later thought that had the room been a concrete bunker with no windows, the blast would have been more devastating. Von Stauffenberg and others who took part in the assassination attempt were arrested and murdered by firing squad in Berlin. This is a commemorative plaque which reads, "Here was the barrack where on the 20th of July, 1944, Klaus Schenk Count von Stauffenberg made an assassination attempt at Adolf Hitler. He, as well as many others who resisted Hitler's dictatorship, paid for it with their lives." There are a lot of ruins still at the Wolf's Lair. Here are a couple of pictures of some of the ruins. The one on the left has always amazed me in that it appears this massive concrete block is being held up by sticks. This is Bunker 13, which was Hitler's bunker. Hitler's bunker had walls that were 4 meters or 13 feet thick and a roof that was 6 meters or 19.5 feet thick. Next, we'll move down to Warsaw, the capital of Poland. It's located just east of central Poland, and during World War II, between 85 and 90% of Warsaw was completely destroyed. The Poland Museum of History of Polish Jews sits at the former site of the Warsaw Ghetto. The grand opening, featuring its core exhibit, opened in 2014. The museum traces the 1,000-year history of the Jewish population in Poland. A few of the items on display are shown on the next few slides. In front of the museum is the monument to the ghetto heroes, which was constructed in 1948 and was erected in memory of the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Outside the museum were a series of powerful billboards contrasting the past and present. Umschalplatz means collection point or transfer point. And as the monument here reads, along this path of suffering and death, over 300,000 Jews were driven in 1942 to 1943 from the Warsaw Ghetto to the gas chambers of the Nazi extermination camps. A majority of the Jews deported from here were sent to Treblinka extermination camp. The Warsaw Umschalplatz was near the Warsaw Ghetto, and Jews would be rounded up and taken to the courtyard here, where they were made to sit and wait for trains that would ultimately take them to their death. This monument was built in 1988. Behind that Umschalplatz is an area that contains original segments of the ghetto wall. The Old Jewish Cemetery in Warsaw is one of the largest Jewish cemeteries in the world. It was built in the early 1800s, and during World War II, the Nazis used the cemetery as a place to execute people and as a place to bury victims of the Warsaw Ghetto in mass graves. The cemetery was heavily damaged during the war. This roped-off area was one of the symbolic grave sites of the victims of the Holocaust. In the cemetery is this monument of Janusz Korczak walking with children. Janusz Korczak was a Polish Jewish doctor, author, teacher, and in charge of a Jewish orphanage. He did groundbreaking work in education, which focused on the rights of children and child-centered education. During the Warsaw Ghetto mass deportation in July 1942, many were sent to Treblinka. Although Janusz was given several opportunities by his Polish friends to escape, he refused, and he did not want to abandon his children in the orphanage. In August 1942, he and his staff were witnessed calmly marching over 200 orphans to the Umschalplatz and onto boxcars. He and his staff accompanied his 200 children to the gas chambers at Treblinka. To the right in the picture is the only stone in Treblinka that bears the name of a person, and it's dedicated to him and the children. The Warsaw Rising Museum opened in 2004 and is dedicated to the history of the 1944 Warsaw Uprising. The next several slides contain photos of some of the items on display in the museum. The Warsaw Uprising Monument was completed in 1989. In this part of the monument, resistance fighters are running from what is depicted as a building collapsing. Another area of the monument depicts resistance fighters descending into a manhole. Resistance fighters used the underground sewer tunnels to navigate undetected and to facilitate escapes. Krakow is Poland's second largest city after Warsaw and is located in southern Poland near the borders of Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Krakow is home to Poland's oldest university, Jagiellonian University, which dates back to the 1300s. It's so old, in fact, that Nicholas Copernicus was one of its graduates. Before becoming Pope, Pope John Paul II lived in Krakow. Plaszow concentration camp was located in a suburb of Krakow, and Auschwitz-Birkenau is a little over an hour's drive west of Krakow. Of all the cities I've visited in Poland, Krakow is my personal favorite. On this map is Kazimierz, which is the historical Jewish district in Krakow. Several locations in this area were used in the filming of the movie Schindler's List. We'll be starting here at the Old Synagogue, and then we'll make our way here to the Rimu Synagogue. From there, we'll cross over and see a circular market building, also known as the Rotunda, before heading over to the courtyard here, which is one of the filming sites of Schindler's List. And then we'll go up here to the Krakow Jewish Community Center, also known as the JCC. This is the old synagogue. Parts of it date back to the 14 and 1500s, and it is the oldest preserved synagogue in Poland. As we walk across the courtyard, we come to this monument, and the plaque reads, "Place of Meditation upon the martyrdom of 65,000 Polish citizens of Jewish nationality from Krakow and its environs, killed by the Nazis during World War II." Next, we come to the new synagogue, also known as the Rimu Synagogue, and it dates back to the 1500s. Behind the Rimu Synagogue is the old cemetery. Much of it was destroyed by the Nazis and later had to be rebuilt. This is a focal point in the cemetery and is referred to as either Krakow's Wailing Wall or the Wall of Tears. Damaged tombstone fragments that were unable to be put back together were instead joined together in this mosaic wall. This circular market building, also called the Rotunda, was once the location of a Jewish kosher slaughterhouse for poultry leading up to World War II. It was shut down by the Nazis when they invaded. This is the courtyard of WWII. The area was still a little run down whenever I visited, but I've heard they have since spruced it up with outdoor cafes. Part of Schindler's List was filmed here and is depicted in the scene when Nazis were raiding homes and dumping people's belongings over these railings. In the movie, a woman hid under this staircase to hide from the Nazis. The Krakow Jewish Community Center, known as the JCC for short, serves not only the local Jewish community, but has educational and humanitarian programs open to all. When I was there, they were providing assistance to Ukrainian refugees. And in fact, in this picture, refugees are lined up to receive a hot meal. Every summer, the JCC hosts the Ride for the Living, in which participants bike 60 miles from Auschwitz-Birkenau to the Krakow JCC as part of a fundraising endeavor. From the Kazimierz district, we'll cross the Vistula River and visit this area, which has the Under the Eagle Pharmacy and the Empty Chairs Monument. Then we'll visit Oskar Schindler's factory here, and then cross over to this open area, which was the site of the Plaszow concentration camp. Tadeusz Pankiewicz was a Polish Roman Catholic pharmacist who owned the Under the Eagle Pharmacy in the Krakow ghetto. Although he was given the opportunity to relocate his pharmacy outside of the ghetto, he chose to stay. From the pharmacy's window, he was able to witness the Nazis' treatment of the Jews and the deportations. He provided medications to those in the ghetto, and his pharmacy provided a safe place for Jews to have secret meetings and receive smuggled information and goods. He also had a safe in the basement and was able to collect Torah scrolls and artifacts so they wouldn't be destroyed by the Nazis. After the war, he provided testimony to what occurred in the ghetto and wrote a book titled The Krakow Ghetto Pharmacy. In 1983, he was awarded Righteous Among the Nations. He passed away in 1993 at the age of 84. In the vicinity of the Under the Eagle Pharmacy is a large square where Jews were gathered to await deportation to concentration camps. The square is now called Ghetto Heroes Square and contains these large empty chairs in commemoration of the lives that were lost. A short distance from the Ghetto Heroes Square is Oskar Schindler's factory. If you've seen the movie Schindler's List, this location played a central role in the movie and is where Schindler hired Jewish prisoners from the nearby Plaszow concentration camp to work in his factory. The site is now a museum. The photo on the left is Schindler's office with his original desk. To the right is a photo of Schindler, and above it is one of his quotes, which says, "Life makes sense as long as you save people." To the left is a Nazi uniform from the Plaszow concentration camp, which was the camp in Krakow near Schindler's factory. To the right is a cigarette case made out of human skin. Some Nazis kept items like this as souvenirs. Holocaust victims who had tattoos were especially of interest to the Nazis, as they would have the skin bearing the tattoos removed prior to the bodies being incinerated. This picture is on one of the walls in the Schindler Museum and shows some of the Jews saved by Schindler paying their respects at his grave. Schindler's grave is in a Catholic cemetery in Jerusalem. Near Schindler's factory is the former site of the Plaszow concentration camp. The camp's sadistic commandant, Amon Gert, was portrayed by actor Ralph Fiennes in the movie Schindler's List. The Jews saved by Schindler were from this camp. The English pronunciation of this city is Lodz, and the Polish pronunciation is Łódź, so you may hear it pronounced both ways. The city of Łódź is about an hour-and-a-half drive from Warsaw and about a 3-hour drive from Krakow. The Łódź ghetto was the second largest ghetto. The Warsaw ghetto was the largest. Radegast Station, seen here, is the train station where thousands were deported from Łódź. It now houses a museum. This memorial is near the train station. It lists camps people were deported to from here. From left to right are Stutthof, Helmnow, Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen, Gross-Rosen, and Auschwitz-Birkenau. A majority of those deported from Łódź were either sent to Helmnow, where they were murdered in gas vans, or Auschwitz-Birkenau. If you would like to learn more about these camps, please see my YouTube channel where I have videos dedicated to the individual camps. As you look at this memorial, the concrete kind of looks like tombstones. And if you look closely, you can see that there are arms and hands outstretched that are engraved in the concrete. In this present-day aerial view, you can see the train station here, and then you'll see this long passageway that leads down to a smaller memorial. We'll take a look at these on the next slide. So here's that long passageway, and it's known as the Tunnel of the Deportees, which ends here at this column of remembrance. Inside the column of remembrance is a room containing the symbolic Hall of Cities. On the outside it reads, "Thou shalt not kill." Now we're going to head to northeast Poland to see where the Jedwabne massacre occurred. This is the site of the Jedwabne massacre. In 1941, about 40% of the population of Jedwabne were Polish Jews. Initially, the Soviets invaded Jedwabne during World War II, even having a statue of Lenin erected. In 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union and subsequently invaded Jedwabne. On the morning of July 10, 1941, German officials arrived in Jedwabne and were seen meeting with the town council. Later that day, Polish non-Jews began to harass, beat, and murder their Jewish neighbors. About 40 Jewish men were forced to dismantle and carry the statue of Lenin in the vicinity of a barn. The men were then made to dig pits and throw Lenin's statue in it. The men were then shot and buried in the pit. The Poles continued to round up their Jewish neighbors and herded about 300 of them into a barn. They then set the barn on fire and burned their neighbors alive. In 1963, a monument was erected. However, it was blaming the Nazis for the massacre. This is the site of where that barn once stood. And on this monument is a wooden door, which is symbolically representing the barn door. It wasn't until the year 2000 that the truth was revealed in Jan Gross's book, Neighbors, The Destruction of the Jewish Community in Jedwabne, Poland. In 2001, areas were exhumed and the statue of Lenin was found, along with the remains of about 40 men. The area of the barn was also excavated and remains were found. So even though the murders were performed by the town's Polish citizens, nothing to that effect is mentioned here. Of note, in the distance, you can see a church. As was typical in many areas where atrocities took place, the actions of the perpetrators were in clear view of local citizens. Whether it be in the form of cattle cars packed with people passing through towns, or smoke billowing from crematoriums, or sounds of gunshots echoing, or in the case of Jedwabne massacre, people being burned alive in a barn in full view of a church and town.